Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Carrie Swore. I'm Chief Growth Officer for Urban Teachers. Thank you for joining tonight's webinar that is about our AmeriCorps program. Urban Teachers was named an AmeriCorps affiliate program last May. We were excited to be able to start offering AmeriCorps Service and Siegel Education Awards for our cohort 2016 that just started this summer and hopefully moving forward. And I'm going to share some information about that program, and then I'm going to open up for a Q&A discussion that I have with at least 3 of our folks who are from Baltimore and our sites in Dallas-Fort Worth, that they'll talk about their experience in our program. They are all AmeriCorps alums joining us from AmeriCorps to join our program. And Terrence and Jillian, who we'll talk with too, actually, we'll talk about whether or not you already had 2 years of service and where you are. But folks who already have a Siegel Education Award, you can get up to 2 in a lifetime. So we'll talk about some of those rules too. But we're very excited that we finally are AmeriCorps, and we definitely recruit very heavily in AmeriCorps programs around the country, because we know to be an urban teacher, you definitely need to be very service-minded, and that's how we know we're looking. We are definitely looking in the AmeriCorps pool to turn sort of a year or 2 of service into a career of service as an urban teacher. So I will quickly go through a few slides here. So AmeriCorps, just if you aren't familiar with it, it is part of the Corporation for National and Community Service. So that is an independent federal agency that's really designed to improve the lives of and strengthen communities, foster civic engagement through service, volunteering. There are more than 5 million Americans who serve each year through their programs, both the Senior Corps and AmeriCorps. And that was sort of part of President Obama's service initiative, United We Serve. And then AmeriCorps is a program of the Corporation for National and Community Service. It really engages individuals in intensive service through AmeriCorps state and national VISTA programs, National Civilian Community Corps as well. So AmeriCorps engages more than 75,000 Americans in intensive service each year at nonprofits, schools, public agencies, community and faith-based groups around the country, and has 4 main goals. The first one is getting things done. They're really all about helping communities solve problems to help people and serve as volunteers. They encourage responsibility. They explore and exercise their responsibility to communities, families, and themselves during their service experience. They also strengthen communities. They can unite individuals in a common effort to improve communities. And also the 4th goal is expand opportunity. So you can gain valuable job experience, specialized training, and other skills. So reading partners, Geraldine, who's on the call here, was AmeriCorps with them. And in fact, I think you were AmeriCorps and also in charge of volunteers for Reading Partners in Baltimore. And then we have Jillian, who's a AmeriCorps member from City Year San Antonio, and Terrence is a City Year Corps member from Orlando, right? Orlando, yep. So they did all these things in their prior experience, and then clearly are also doing them as part of Urban Teachers. So Jillian and Terrence are also, if they chose to, had the opportunity to continue on with the AmeriCorps service at Urban Teachers. There's several benefits to being AmeriCorps. So the one I had been mentioning was the Siegel Education Award, and that's from successful completion of 1 service year. So you get that, you can opt to get that as part of Urban Teachers if you decide to do AmeriCorps with us, and you could get up to 2 Siegel Awards, 1 at the end of the first year, 1 at the end of the second year. So that's about $5,775 each year. So that is can help towards our tuition, and I'm going to spend a minute or 2 talking about our finances, but also to pay back past loans. So very helpful to make our program more affordable. There's also loan forbearance. So AmeriCorps affiliate members don't have to make student loan payments on public loans during each year of Urban Teachers service membership in AmeriCorps, and you can get 2 service years with Urban Teachers. Interest loans are placed in forbearance and continues to accrue. But there's also interest accrual payment. So affiliate members can access separate AmeriCorps funds to pay off the interest that accumulated on their public loans put into forbearance through AmeriCorps. And then finally, you get to be part of the AmeriCorps community, become a member of a nationally recognized organization. So Geraldine, Jillian, and Terrence are part of the club forever, for life, which is a really great thing to have. So we did, hopefully you all are members of AmeriCorps alums, as we definitely market and do a lot of their events too. So a huge group of people and lots of events around the country, both nationally and locally, for AmeriCorps alums to get together too. So great to have that network. So this is just quick, the timeline for AmeriCorps, how it would be for folks who are coming in to join us for cohort 2017. So just you can quickly see here, I'm not going to talk through everything, but you basically would sign a service agreement, complete your enrollment. There is background checks that we'll be doing that are definitely part of this, and you'll be doing timesheets. And if Jillian and Terrence are doing this, they can speak to that too, what that paperwork is like. But all of that paperwork then is so that folks could earn the Siegel Award, basically. So the service term requirements, you have to be a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident. We will automatically check this in the AmeriCorps system upon enrollment, and you may need to provide additional documentation, but this is the same requirement to get into Urban Teachers. You also have to successfully pass a check of the National Sex Offender public website, and we will be helping you do that. And you can't have served, speaking to this, that you can serve up to 4 terms with AmeriCorps, and you can earn up to 2 education awards with us. So you can still participate with us and not be AmeriCorps if you already maxed out, or just do 1. But you can earn up to 2 service years and up to 2 Siegel Ed Awards with Urban Teachers. But again, you can opt out if you already have 2. You also have to effectively serve in the Urban Teachers program throughout the year to earn this, and you have to earn 1,700 hours of service. And as an Urban Teachers resident, you're going to far surpass those hours of service, and you're also required to comply with our attendance policy. You also have to complete all your AmeriCorps paperwork and documentation. And then you also cannot engage in certain prohibited activities. So there are a list, and we will share them with you to be clear about that. So it is sort of being politically active and speaking out. Some things like that you'll have to refrain while you're serving in AmeriCorps with some of those. But we'll definitely be training folks exactly what is allowed and what isn't allowed. You also have to abide by other AmeriCorps and Urban Teachers policy, no discrimination, no harassment, reasonable accommodations, grievance procedures, and really promote AmeriCorps identity. All right, so just quickly here, I'm going to go, just in case I am catching some people who are interested in this topic who don't know much about Urban Teachers, so I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking over our model here. So it is a 4-year commitment to do Urban Teachers. We really train you thoroughly for the job, so you are prepared as an Urban Teacher to be effective as soon as possible for the students that you'd be working with, all in high poverty public schools in 3 cities that we work in: Baltimore, DC, and Dallas, Fort Worth. There is an online application for our program. Then most folks are invited to a digital performance task and then a final interview. We do prefer a 3.0 GPA, though we will go down to a 2.75 and have a little bit more wiggle room for STEM candidates in DC or Dallas, Fort Worth. So let us know if you have some of that background. Then if you're selected, year 1 is a residency year. So you spend about 1,500 hours working, co-teaching with a host teacher. In fact, 2 different host teachers. Hopefully we'll get Geraldine, Jillian, and Terrence to talk about that experience a bit coming up here. But you co-teach with them, so getting 1,500 hours of real clinical experience working with kids while you earn a master's with our higher ed partner, which is now Johns Hopkins University School of Education. Each year of the program, you have to pass certain gates, so you do have to meet certain GPA requirements here, 3.0 GPA for your graduate coursework. You have to meet teacher practice expectations, and that increases over time. And you have to demonstrate high levels of growth mindset and professionalism. You also get over 100 hours of one-on-one coaching as part of our program, so 3 years worth. So Geraldine, who's the veteran on the panel here tonight, she is in her 3rd year of coaching with Urban Teachers, so she can hopefully speak to what her experience has been with that coaching over that period of time. So from the residency, you move on to your 1st year as a teacher in year 2. You are still completing sort of a handful of your master's courses to finish out your master's at the end of that 2nd year. From there, you move on to year 3, and that's the year where it's the main accountability moment, where it's determined whether or not you get certified. There are 3 programs of study to choose from: elementary ed, secondary English language arts, and secondary math. And on the call, we have 3 of them represented. So both Terrence and Geraldine are elementary ed, and Jillian is secondary literacy. So they can speak to 2 of the 3. We also have secondary math. They all come with a 2nd certification and focus in special ed, which I'd love for the panel to talk to you about that work that they're doing with Urban Teachers. So everybody in our program gets certified in at least 2 areas, and Jillian and Terrence are also going to be the first cohort that also gets a 3rd certification in English as a 2nd language. So that's a really great new thing that Urban Teachers is offering. So to get certified at the 3rd year, they have to demonstrate they can improve student achievement, and that's measured with pre and post tests, standardized tests. So that is a really important accountability moment, because we want effective teachers to be the ones that are making it through our program and are working with kids. Then finally, there's year 4, and folks have a lot of opportunity to take on leadership roles at Urban Teachers and in their schools. So it could be, I know folks are taking on roles like grade level team lead or department chair, things like that. With Urban Teachers, they're being summer mentors, host teachers, roles like that too. So we definitely use your expertise and put you to work as a teacher leader, pretty quickly here in our program. I wanted to talk through one more slide. I know there's a lot of text on here, but basically I want folks to see that all the cost benefits to our program. There is a $20,000 stipend for folks to live on during the 1st year. And you also get room and board for Summer Institute, healthcare from Johns Hopkins School of Ed, all the books and materials for your graduate degree, and then those 36 hours of one-on-one coaching. You're eligible for financial aid. I talked about the Siegel Ed Award as well. But there's also, there is a tuition cost. It is $40,000, and there are 4 bills of $10,000 each, so the fall, spring of the first 2 years of the program. There are many financial aid opportunities, including federal financial aid that you can get that would be timed perfectly to come when those bills are due. And then there's some important, if you look all the way to the right there, some really very generous teacher loan forgiveness programs, particularly if you teach math or special ed. You can be forgiven up to $17,500 if you teach math or special ed, or $5,000 for other subjects. The other federal program that is a good one that a lot of folks can get is the Teach Grant. So you can get about $3,000 a year. I think you can earn up to 2 of those as part of our program too. So all those pieces really come together and make it really affordable. The starting teacher salaries in Baltimore, DC, and Dallas-Fort Worth are some of the largest in the country, so ranging in the mid to upper 40s to the low 50s. All the districts and charter management organizations we work with have pay for performance. So that means that they pay teachers who are effective, improving student achievement more than others. So by design of being successful at Urban Teachers, hopefully you'll more quickly move up the salary ladders or be eligible for bonuses at the school districts that we work in. All right, so that was my very quick overview. That I want to now open up to a discussion with our panelists. So I wanted to introduce everybody. So first up, I have Geraldine Fiesta, who is a cohort 2014 in the elementary ed program who teaches second grade all subjects, right, in Baltimore. She's a graduate of James Madison, and we snagged her out of Reading Partners in Baltimore. And then next, I have Jillian Lyles, who is a cohort 2016, who is part of our inaugural cohort in Dallas-Fort Worth, who is in the secondary ELA program, grade 9, University of Wisconsin. We actually have a lot of cohort members coming out of that school. Probably it's the number one so far this year. So lots of folks coming. We'll see if they go to Dallas-Fort Worth. You might know them. And she did City Year San Antonio. And then next up is Terrence. So Terrence Smith, he is cohort 2016 as well, also in the Dallas-Fort Worth inaugural cohort, elementary ed program of study, teaching 4th and 5th all subjects. And I think last time you also said you were in self-contained special ed. Is that, or I might have been confused. I know you talked about special ed. That's what I remember. Yeah. You can continue to talk about special ed. So you're a Florida State University grad, and we got you out of City or Orlando, and I'm pretty sure we're doing pretty well there again. Thanks to Chris Higgins, our colleague, who is our best recruiter out there. So I'd love for you all, and let's see, I don't know if anyone else joined us. I just want to make sure. Sometimes I can't see. I think it's just you all. So if it's not just you all, please speak up. Yeah, I think it's just you all. Great. So I wanted to open up and sort of get you all to talk about, and you all need to unmute yourselves to do this. If you could talk about what was most important to you in a teacher prep program and why you chose Urban Teachers over other programs. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Jillian?
So coming out of, I didn't want to be a teacher until I did City Year San Antonio. That really helped me see how beneficial a good teacher can be in a child's life, but it also helped me see how detrimental a bad teacher could be to a child's overall day, their morale, their grades, and really their kind of lifetime trajectory. Being in City Year, when I made my decision to be a teacher, I was looking for a program that would help prepare me to be the most capable teacher I could possibly be in the urban schools that I wanted to serve in after serving with City Year. So what I really liked about Urban Teachers was the coaching, the 4-year program. So keeping most teachers, don't make it past 3 years. So Urban Teachers, 4 years, they're already getting you past that year, longer than most teachers are expected to be. And they're just preparing you for what it's like to be in an urban school from day one, and preparing you to have the skills necessary to be effective to really reach that targeted population.
I can speak to exactly what Jillian was saying too. I didn't want to be an educator as well until I was in Reading Partners. And very similar, I was looking for a teaching program that would give me a lot of experience and a lot of resources and a lot of prep work leading up to becoming a first-year teacher in my own classroom. And so when I was doing a lot of research about all these education programs, Urban Teachers really stood out to me because it had that first residency year where I was working alongside someone who was experienced in the classroom. And that was really important for me, just to make sure that I can also be as effective as I can going into the subsequent years of teaching. So that was my big draw of choosing Urban Teachers.
Great.
So similar to Jillian, though I was an education major, City Year really sold teaching for me. I was placed in a classroom with a teacher who had a lot of struggles. So like Jillian said, you're able to see how beneficial or dangerous in some cases a teacher can be if not well equipped. So what really sold me on Urban Teachers was the 36 hours of one-on-one coaching. That coaching is extremely beneficial in becoming a effective teacher and learning best practices and just really getting those practices as polished as possible for students.
Great. So I'd love for you, the three of you, to talk about like what the coaching has been, and maybe be specific about something that they helped you improve. And again, Jillian and Terrence are 7 months, 8 months in now. Geraldine, you have a couple years on them. so we have that.
There's this cool thing that my coach just recently added to my coaching experience, where I have a mic, earpiece in my ear, and while I'm coaching, while I'm teaching a lesson in class, she sits in the back and she has a little mic that she's talking to me. She's telling me, circulate, positively narrate, and at first it's a little awkward, but after you get past the awkward stage, it becomes extremely beneficial, because sometimes you're so caught up in the lesson, or nerves get the best of you, because students can sometimes be a little nerve-wracking. So the nerves get the best of you, but when you have that, it's just that voice in your ear telling you, hey, you're doing great. These are some things you can do a little better.
Great.
I really like, I haven't experienced that yet, but I really like, my coach they come in and observe me, but then they record my video, and they actually have me go back and track in the video where I see things I did well and where I see things that I can improve on or had improved on. And that's been really helpful. I mean, it takes forever, but it's really helpful to see those exact moments, to like see what my coaches see what my students see. And then another aspect of coaching that I really like, that I never even considered before I was in the classroom, is that it's actually been really beneficial for working with my students and like building that relationship and building that like growth mindset in myself and in my students, because I'm able to say, like, my coach is coming in, like, that's my coach, like, I'm learning just like you guys are learning to be the most effective teacher I can. And so really being, because I work with high school kids, so they're a little bit more like self-aware, so really being like honest and open with my students, and then saying, like, I'll take feedback from her and I'll take feedback from you guys. Like, you guys know how well you learn. So that's been really beneficial for the kids to see like how committed I am to helping them reach their potential.
Yeah, Geraldine, you're in your 3rd year of coaching.
Yeah, so I've had a few coaches over my last few years, and they all offer different types of knowledge behind how I can improve my practice in the classroom. So for instance, my coach right now, she's really big about data-driven instruction. And so she's been really helping me with resources of how I can monitor and record how my students are doing at the moment, and be able to use that to inform my instruction. So I've really enjoyed just the knowledge from my coaches, who have all been educators at some point, and so they know exactly what being in the classroom has been like. So that's real experience for me to also take into my classroom.
Great. And then I'd love for you all, because I do think, like, for sure the coaching and the support is one of the important parts of Urban Teachers, and I think what does attract people to our program, and we've all spoken to it. The other one that people don't always talk about, but I think in the field, is the special ed component, because that I don't know any other teacher prep program that requires their folks to get get that second certification in special ed and the additional coursework. So I want you to, if you can speak to how you see that benefiting you as a teacher and the students that you're working with. And I don't think any of you I thought, Terrence, maybe you had some experience with, because I think what we prepare you to do is you can teach special ed. But the idea is that we really are using it to help you be a better general ed teacher. So, but if you can talk about your experience, then I'm sure you all have colleagues that are in special ed classrooms and what they, how they're benefiting too.
So what I appreciate most about the special ed aspect is so in teaching, a lot of times you think that it's just lesson planning, which, there is a lot of lesson planning that happens. But on top of lesson planning, there's planning for those obstacles that you aren't necessarily that you're not necessarily aware of or prepared for. So the special ed training we receive just allows us to prepare for ways to accommodate and modify things for students who learn differently from us, or from the vast majority of the students that may be in your classroom. So I do have a few STEM students that are within my self-contained classroom. And with that, I'm just learning a lot of, again, best practices that have helped me meet their social, emotional needs as well as their academic needs, and just to keep the classroom flowing a lot more smoothly.
Jillian or Geraldine?
Okay. So one thing I really like about the special education classes is that, and I don't know if it's the same for primary, but at least in secondary, it really allows you to get to know your students really well. So we're learning, how any teacher would accommodate students and apply modifications and, the whole legality of it. But then what we take into our classrooms is, do interviews with students, go over their paperwork with the special educator at your campus, do interviews with their other teachers, reach out to parents. So it's really helping you get to know the whole student, and what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and how you could really help them in the classroom. And I think that all good teachers get to know their students in that way, but the coursework definitely helps accelerate that process for you as a resident teacher, and I'm sure next year as a full first-year teacher in the classroom.
The really beneficial part for me, I would say, is similar to what Jillian and Terrence were saying, was being able to provide those different accommodations and modifications. So especially now in my second year, I've been able to apply more differentiation, and regardless of whether your students are in special education or general education, it's something that you can utilize in the classroom for all your students, that you want to be able to individualize your teaching as much as you can, and knowing those skills with special education, you can apply that with all your students in the classroom and be much more effective that way. And completely agree with what Jillian said about just getting to know your students, what is better for them in terms of presenting their information, or how they even digest their information, what's their best learning style. It's all about figuring out how can they access the information in the best way possible.
Great. And Terrence, did you want to say something more about that? Yeah, go ahead.
Jillian did bring a good point. It also just changes your whole mindset about children and just the way you think about them. Like, you start to see certain behaviors that your child that your student may be exemplifying, and you think to yourself at first, without the training that we see with urban teachers, you may just think, oh, that is a poor behaving child. Then you just start to realize, oh, these are triggers, or these are different things that I've learned in class that he's portraying. So now, and you just learn about the triggers of the behavior and the function of the different things that the child is showing you, instead of just saying that he or she is one particular thing. You now, like she says, just see a whole different view. You see the child in a holistic view, rather than just staying there, coining them with a particular negative trait.
So I'd love for you to talk about, we advertise to folks that it's a clinical master's, and I'm not sure people really understand what that means. So, I think probably 40% of our cohort does tend to be straight out of college, but we do kind of say that this isn't a typical master's program. And so could you speak to sort of, and Geraldine, I know you're a year, at least 6 months out of the graduate coursework, but if you could speak to, sort of the kinds of assignments you do and how they're clinical, and how they're really different than maybe your undergrad, or, that your undergrad was. So explain, what that clinical master's difference is and how it's helped you.
one of my favorite courses that I took during my residency year was in regards to guided reading. And so in my coursework, we learned all these strategies of assessing students to figure out their reading level using particular assessments. And then using that assessment, how can we target what the student needs in order to grow in their reading level. And so whatever we learned within the classroom in our coursework, we brought into the classroom and tried it out within our own small group of students. So it was really helpful being able to practice that in my residency year when I was working alongside a teacher, because it gave me the opportunity to just practice. And I think that's what we need the most in order to be great teachers, is just that a lot of time in the classroom implementing what you're learning from your coursework. So it was a lot of work, but it really did prepare me when I went into my first year of teaching, knowing how to start a guided reading group and how to assess my students and how to go from there in order to make them grow in their reading levels.
Great. Jillian or Terrence? Yep. You.
Okay, could you repeat the question for me?
So I wanted to unpack and explain like what we mean by clinical masters. So
Okay.
So you're and what Geraldine did explain that, like
Yeah,
how she
so
learned something she did right away in the classroom. So
that is exactly
example.
yeah, that is exactly what it is. You learn and then you implement. You learn, you implement, and the implementation just doesn't stop, nor does the learning. It just is a continuous cycle. Sometimes if I'm being honest, it may seem like you're just being bombarded with a lot of information, but you realize once you go into the classroom, you start implementing these different things that you're learning in your coursework, it works. And it surprises you how much it works. It's almost like it really is. Urban Teachers really does have it down to a science almost, because it just works.
Okay, sorry, the dog was barking. So I would say that, I mean, just like you said, Carrie, we got the warning that it was a clinical master's, and like you're like, and all that implies, and you think you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. I went to a good university, I got this. But I think you just being realistic, you are really surprised by the fast-paced nature of your coursework and how, I mean, if you're reading all your syllabuses, or syllabi, but like it's really like you hear in class on Monday, oh yeah, you need to implement this in your class this week and write a reflection on it and write a paper on it for next week, and it needs to include student work, and you need to have interviewed a teacher, and you need to have sent this letter home to a parent. So I will definitely agree with Geraldine that it does, I would think, prepare you for the demands of being a first-year teacher, but it also is very applicable. I mean, it definitely helps me learn about my students and their learning needs and their how best to help them reach their achievement goals. But it also is like serious work, like the turnaround time and the demands, and have it graded, don't have it graded. We're going to talk about it in class. It needs to meet these very specific qualifications. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, I'll just reiterate what Tara said, in that it's like, you're like, in the moment, you're like, this isn't going to work. Why am I doing this? This is busy work. And then, 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the line, you're like, oh yeah, that's where it was helping me get my students. I know specifically right now in secondary ELA, we're talking about how to give students feedback on writing. And most of us now have been in the classroom almost, we're in end of third quarter, and we're like, we've given students feedback on writing, we get it. But then we're learning how you actually do it, and we're starting to see, that is how you lead the student to really authentic learning and being able to assess their own writing. That is the correct way. We should be giving feedback. Our host teachers should be giving feedback. Everyone should be giving feedback this way. So I think even though it is very demanding, it's definitely worth it. If you realize it the day of or 2 weeks down the line, you realize that Urban Teachers was trying to get you there.
Yeah, and the other thing that I did not get to go through this program myself, but I do drop in from time to time to your classes, and I'm always kind of struck that the classes are always set up as if it was a real classroom. So, you all are, working on transitions, and that would be the transition into the class, to start the class, so that it's sort of like a class within a class is kind of how I often see it, which I think is amazing, as you get practice in your coursework too. You're modeling, your professor is modeling how you should be in your own class. And even I've seen where sometimes they've even given you roles, that other people don't know, but to be the person that is going to be the pleaser for the teacher, or somebody who will, pull around or whatever. And so whoever is modeling that day has to, figure all that out. So I love that. And I don't know if there's anything more you want to say about that, the class within the class kind of model that we have going on here.
Yeah, it definitely is like that. And so where we take our coursework is also actually in a classroom, like a in the primary classroom is where we take ours, in the primary classroom. So it's like our little lab.
Mm-hmm.
We look around the room, like if we're talking about maybe anchor charts, or how to create anchor charts, just how to set up classroom. We're in the space to look around and say, okay, I can see how it would be beneficial here, like the rules, like simple things that you don't really think about as a teacher, like how placing the rules in a particular place can help students stay on track and be mindful of expectations and just things like that. So
great. So I'd love for you to also, there's just a couple more questions here I wanted to cover. So one is sort of the benefit of going through this process as a peer group. So you've all had that experience. So I'd love for you to talk about how that helps you personally and professionally.
Well, I would say one of the great things about going through it as a peer group is that, as great as Urban Teachers is, and as much as they try to anticipate every need we'll have in the classroom, it's just impossible. Students are different, especially working with the populations we do. They have their own very unique set of problems. Grade levels, like working with 9th grade is so different than working with 10th grade. So one benefit of being in a peer group is that there's at least one person who's had a situation similar to yours, or a situation, especially like maybe behavior management or building relationships with students, which we kind of address adjacently in class, but isn't something that's been like directly addressed. So it's really helpful to be able to ask that advice. And just, it's so great that so many people in the program are AmeriCorps, because even if I don't have an experience this year, I can be like, oh, hey, well, when I was in city year, I worked with a scholar who was always trying to square up with me. Let me tell you how I dealt with that and kept them on the right track. So that's really helpful. Personally, it's just, a lot of us, especially in the Dallas program, are Dallas transport. So we came to Dallas. We started off, I refer to it as the gilded cage that was Summer Institute, where you're kind of, it's great and you're learning a lot, but you're also like, you have no time for anything. So it's really great to have a group of people who understand what you're going through, because maybe you talk to your friends and you talk to your family and they're like, what do you mean you're grading papers on a Saturday? And then you text someone in the program and they're like, of course you're grading papers on a Saturday. So it's really beneficial coursework, because as great as our professors are, they're not always that as clear as they think they are. So having someone that you can reach out to and be like, hey, what did you do for this assignment? Hey, what do you think the expectations are? Overall, it's just a really supportive environment to help you get through probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do.
Terrence or Geraldine?
I would say it's definitely great for the support. Socially, emotionally, it's a very challenging, it can be very challenging for sure, and very draining and exhausting at times, but it's nice to have someone to commiserate with. And as Jillian was saying, they know what you're going through. They're taking the same coursework that you are. They're applying that same thing in the classroom. They have those same demands. So not only are you there as a good support, but you're also there to share and bounce ideas off of each other. I have people in my cohort now who are working in my school, and they have, they might be really good at math instruction, for instance, and I can go and ask them, like, what should I do for this this student? What like what tools do you have in your classroom? What can I like steal and borrow from you? It's just, it's nice knowing that you have someone to fall back on, and talk about all these things in your teaching experience, because as Jillian was saying, you're right, your friends and your family members might not understand what you're going through because they haven't taught before, so they don't know how all the things that you do in one day and all the decisions that you have to make in the span of 1 minute in the classroom. So it's that's one of the big benefits of going through with a cohort.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Just so on top of all those things they said, because I don't want to repeat, you also just get a family. Like if you're someone like me who has never been away from more than like 2 or 3 hours away from home, moving here for me was a drastic change. It was just a really big thing. And I think, like Ian said, I think there's only one person in our cohort who actually is from Dallas. So everyone
to change that, but
so everyone pretty much is away from home. Yeah. So you get a family. You get, you're going to school every day, you're working hard at work. Sometimes you just need somebody to hug you. And that is what my core has been. They have just been 169 hugs.
Great.
Can I just add?
Yeah, you finish, and then I do want you to talk about the cities you live in. I need you to sell. Yeah.
I just want to say one small other thing is that one of the great advantages of this program, but also I think one of the greatest struggles that I think a lot of people have had in the program is dealing with a host teacher. And I think unless, as great as the urban teacher staff is trying to give us advice, I think unless you've literally been in someone else's classroom trying to do what urban teachers asks us to do and trying to manage that relationship, and also maybe being the cool teacher and having the kids love you and the teacher being the bad cop, or you having to be the bad cop when the teacher's the good cop. Just like so many variations of that relationship. I think it's something that not a lot of people, maybe City Year because we do it, or other AmeriCorps programs, but not a lot of people can understand that. So that's a great resource for people like, oh, hey, this happened with my host teacher. Have you had that happen? How did you get back on track to make sure it's a professional, effective relationship?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everyone, you all are co-teaching with that host teacher, so it is a very close relationship that you do have. And I think, Geraldine, with your year too, I think we switched to have folks do 2 different host teachers, one in the fall and one in the spring. Geraldine, I don't know if we did that your year too.
It depended on what priority was given, at least the uplift schools, to the director. So I know, like, I didn't change because they thought that I would be so effective. So it's really up to the, yeah.
Okay. But most do have 2 different host teachers. So, and if and if there is like a serious problem, we will move them. So I don't know. We don't need to get into any stories, but but our site team, is there to really provide a lot of help. And other webinars, we've talked about the support that your assistant directors provide in each of the cities. And actually, we're going to do a webinar with an assistant director from each of the cities to have them talk amongst each other, the support that they give you, and for sure vetting host teachers and managing any problems that there might be as part of their role too. So I'd love for you to sell your cities. So we do want more people to go to Dallas, Fort Worth, and Baltimore. So if you can share what are some of your favorite parts about those cities, and encourage folks to move there or who are already there to teach there.
Okay. I will say it's warm. Coming from Wisconsin, you said you're getting a lot of Wisconsin.
We are. That's a front runner.
Yeah, transport. It is. The weather is amazing. It actually, so that's like the number one sell. I would also say Dallas is just a really fun city. When I first moved here, I was like, where are all the grocery stores? And everyone was like, it's the restaurant capital of the United States. Yeah. So there's a lot of really cool places to eat, a lot of really cool places to go out at night. I think it's one of the most tourist-friendly cities that I wouldn't think of as a tourist destination that I've ever been to. You know, friends come and visit, or if I just have a free weekend. Just the amount of things you can go to. I think the idea that it's a metroplex is really cool, because there's Dallas and then there's Fort Worth, which everyone says, but you have to experience, is totally different than Dallas. It's got its totally own vibe, and it's totally like things that are cool to do on its own. And then just because if anyone's worried about, not coming from City Year, we got a raise, but if anyone's worried about the stipend life, I think Dallas is overall, or the metroplex in and of itself, is really affordable on the stipend. I don't think anyone's struggling, riding that struggle bus too hard.
Yeah.
Come to Dallas, you'll love it. So for somebody like me who's from Tallahassee, Florida, which is fairly small, moving to Dallas or the DFW was like mind blowing. I had never seen so many like highways that overlapped and did all kind of weird things. So it was overwhelming at first, but I love it there. Like she says, there are a lot of great things. Like this past weekend, I just attended an Erykah Badu concert for $20. And there are more concerts to come that I plan on joining or plan on attending. And if you love museums, me and my roommate, we visit museums rather frequently. We just love it. There's just so many educational pieces. Texas itself is just a rich piece of history, and it's so patriotic here. Like it just blows my mind how patriotic it is here in Texas.
And the Texas Pledge, you guys do that?
Yes, we do the Texas, which took me by surprise. My students, we recite the Pledge of Allegiance and then the Texas Pledge. I recited the Pledge of Allegiance and sat down, and my students were like, "What are you doing? You don't do that." You know, so it's just a beautiful, beautiful state with a lot of opportunities for exploration and for growth here. So,
yeah. All right, Geraldine.
So Baltimore is awesome because it has a lot of history. I used to live like right down the street from Edgar Allan Poe's grave, and then Babe Ruth's birthplace was right down the road too. And then of course close by is Fort McHenry, where the Star Spangled Banner was written. So there's a lot of cool history, a lot of awesome museums to go to. I'm a huge baseball fan, so the Baltimore Orioles, yeah, they're great. Baseball games are super cheap and really fun to go to once the weather gets warm. We have really good seafood, so really known for the Chesapeake Bay and all its really good seafood. And if you're a football fan, I mean, there's the Ravens there. There's just a lot to do, and it sounds very similar to Dallas, where that it's like really affordable. And not only that, like Baltimore is a really good city where you can reach like other cities and travel around on the East Coast. So like Philly is really not that far away. You can take the MARC down to DC for the weekend. You're a really good central location to reach all these really great cities. But in itself, Baltimore it's really fun. And you can definitely live there on an AmeriCorps stipend, and you'll be fine.
Great. Good. All right. I just wanted to wrap up if you have any advice for folks who are thinking about going into teaching and possibly going with urban teachers. If you have any advice for folks.
My advice, and this is the advice I gave the last group, is to make sure that you're joining this organization because you want to. This it shouldn't be like well, this didn't work out, so I guess I'll do that kind of program, because it's not. It will work you, and of course the work that we put in is worth it at the end of the day. But you have to be dedicated, and it has to be, your heart has to be into it. Because if your heart is not into it, you will not survive. In my opinion.
I would say reach out to anybody who's currently in the program. So I think Carrie had provided our emails, but those are probably the best people, aside from all the staff members who can really tell you the nitty gritty about the program and what you're going through and what it looks like with the different years. So reach out to different cohorts as well, because then they'll tell you how year 3 looks like compared to the residency year, so that you have a long-term picture of what it would look like and feel like being in the program. And ask a lot of questions, like anything, just get as much information as possible.
And we do job shadow days in all the cities. So we've been doing them at least once a month, but now we just opened it up so you can be with somebody all day or half a day, or just come into coursework. So trying to be, however you want to see us, we will make it happen. So Jillian, anything else? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, come to a job shadow day. I would say even if you are AmeriCorps and you think you know what it's like, I know I could have never anticipated the strengths or the upsides and the downsides of a charter school. And now we're here. When I joined, there wasn't a cohort in Dallas, but we're here now. So definitely come see, what it's like in charter, what it's like in Dallas DISD, what it would be like in Fort Worth. Because you really, even people who had an education background, like we even had someone who was a former teacher, you really can't understand the program until you see the program and you talk to people. And they stop by and just talk to you on their way to doing homework or going to coursework. So that would be my suggestion. And then just to reiterate what Taryn said, in that you have to be 100% sure this is what you want to do. This is not a program for the faint of heart. And it's a great program if you want to be challenged, if you want to be the best teacher you could possibly be, if you want to be surrounded by peers who will continually push you in a program that will continually support you, and great kids, then it's a place to be. But it's not a second choice. It's a full body, heart, mind, soul, brain commitment.
Great. That's a great way to end. So I want to thank Geraldine, Jillian, and Terrence for being awesome. Again, you all are awesome. Yeah. So this was a great conversation. I want to thank you for participating, and those of you who are listening, we hope that you're going to apply if you haven't already. We have 2 more deadlines here to finish up our cohort 2017, which is about going to be the biggest we've ever had. We have deadline March 27th and then May 1st to finish out the year. So tell your friends and family, and make sure they're in it for 100%. And we're excited to have you come our way. So thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you.